everyone. Welcome to another episode of All Day Radio. I'm your host, Tamara Day. And today we have an amazing episode that's in line with our series, Bigger Than Boobs, where we talk about all things boobies, especially in line with breast implant illness. But in particular, today's episode, I want to introduce someone that has a very unique story, but ultimately we're realizing is not so unique in this time when we're talking about the prevalence of breast cancer and what happens to women after and the decisions that they have to make according to their bodies and their health. And this woman's story is very amazing. I can't wait to introduce her. And on our show today, we have Jamie Kastellic. So welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for being on here and sharing your testimony. I think it's going to shed light on something that many of us in this particular subsect of the implant stories don't always hear. I know that you were on the private Facebook group, were you or not, on the breast implant illness? You weren't on there?
I was on one on Facebook as well as Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Facebook one, I think us women that were a part of it have heard, obviously, some women's stories about going through cancer and having their breasts removed. But there's very little spoken about what happens when that doesn't come through all the way. And I'd love for you to share your story in this, and you can take us as far back as you want, from getting the cancer to making the decision to have them removed, and then ultimately what was going to transpire after. So give us your whole story with that.
Okay.
I know, right?
Okay, so it's a long story, but I'll kind of keep it. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer it's been 8 years. And I wanted to do the bilateral mastectomy, and I had planned on doing that, but there was some timing and some scheduling issues and everything. So I did a delayed reconstruction because my end goal was to do reconstruction. So I did the bilateral and I was flat.
Tell us about, you talk about it so calmly, maybe because you've had to tell this story so much and you've lived it, but for those of us that this is not part of our journey with the implants, can you kind of walk us through the thoughts of removing them? Because I think so many of us women, in deciding to get out the implants, there's this whole pressure of what we're going to look like and feel like when we remove these things that were once a part of us. But yours really were a part of you. And then it's saying, hey, it's all or nothing. So what made you make the decision of getting them completely removed, and where was your mindset at that time?
So my aunt had breast cancer, and she was an anesthesiologist and she was married to a neurosurgeon. So she had top-notch care and treatment. And this was maybe 20 years ago.
Wow.
But when she was initially diagnosed, she had a lumpectomy because that was kind of the standard of care then. And it ended up coming back. And when it came back, I told my boyfriend, who is now my husband, I was like, if I ever was diagnosed with breast cancer, I would just get a bilateral mastectomy, hands down. I would just not mess with it. I would just be done. And so fast forward, oh my gosh, I want to say 7 years-ish,
wow.
I ended up getting breast cancer. And when I,
was it
diagnosed,
the same type as hers? Is it run in your family? And
it's weird because she it was hormone fed. So it was estrogen, induced, but hers was lobular and mine was ductal. She actually had all kinds of genetic testing and everything was negative. I had genetic testing and everything was negative. And actually 2 years after I was diagnosed, my sister was also diagnosed, and she had testing and it was all genetics were negative also. My sister also had a bilateral mastectomy, but she did do the reconstruction. Hers actually was fine. And she has, boobs that are attached to her body.
Isn't that crazy? To see that running run in the family, but not genetically, and to not see those markers there. But to have that happen and have such a different experience. I mean, we live in obviously such a comparative world. I mean, what's that like to have your sister go through it and like her have a positive experience, if you will, with, you know, getting them out and putting the implants in?
And her experience actually was a lot different than mine. I went through chemotherapy and I had a few more steps, I guess, and surgeries.
Okay.
And hers, she didn't have to do the chemotherapy because you do a test that kind of tells you if you need it or not. And so, but I was happy for her because I mean, that was my end goal. So
yeah,
I
you
really
thought that was going to be yours also.
Right.
Yeah.
That was kind of like what I was, you know, looking forward to at the end of all of this. So honestly, like when I first saw my chest, and I had actually never seen a bilateral mastectomy with no reconstruction ever before. Wow. And people weren't sharing pictures like that at the time.
Can I ask you if you went, because I was under the impression via most posts that I saw was that when they do bilateral, they take off everything. Like you're just left with 2 lateral scars. They take your nipple. And then I had a woman on last week. Her episode will probably air before this. They kept her nipple, but she has the scars all the way across. And I didn't know that was possible. She says it's basically only if it affects the tissue behind the nipple, then they'll take it all, but sometimes not. So I don't know. It just depends on the aggressiveness of the cancer or something.
Mine are just like straight across.
Right.
They took like everything. So mine's like totally flat. Wow. And like I said, I'd never seen what that looked like until I saw my own. So I was like, you know, I'm going to post pictures on social media.
You're just, and who are you? It's so brave. And like,
I was not like that before.
It just brought something out of you, huh? Like just
it did. Yeah. Because I was like, you know, nobody should have to go through this experience and not have any idea what to expect, you know, at the end. So I was terrified, but I did post the pictures.
Have you always had this like warrior spirit about you? Like,
I have always been feisty.
Okay. Just translated that into fighter. Like I'm going to just show people that you can do. Yeah, man.
And I think that like really, initially I felt really ashamed, I guess, you know, and I don't know necessarily why, because it wasn't like I did anything to cause the breast cancer or the outcome, but I really felt badly. And then I kind of was like, screw this, you know, I'm going to make this my bitch. I hope I can say that.
Of course you can. Free speech on my page until they shut us
because
down.
I'm really, I'm like a truck driver.
I'm a sailor. I always say, so I'm all with the F-bombs.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I really was like, you know, I'm not going to be ashamed of something that happened to me, and I'm not going to live my life like that, you know, and I'm going to show everyone, you know, what this looks like, because either you look like me and that's okay, or you'll see my pictures and say, I don't want to look like that. So I better get my, you know, mammograms and stay on top of things. So I felt like it was kind of, you know, going to be a plus regardless.
Right.
And it was, I got a lot of really positive feedback. So,
and how long were you flat for before they scheduled the implants to go in? Or
okay, so I had my mastectomy in December, and I went through chemotherapy, and then I started the process at the end of August.
Okay.
So I went through
a considerable amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. And what they do is they place expanders like behind your muscle, and they slowly, like gradually kind of push it out. And I'll send you pictures of all that if I haven't already, but they kind of and it's like torture. Seriously. Yes. It is so,
it's like going through an implantation over and over and over, right? Every time
a ball, and they just kind of expand it slowly. And you know, there's like a little, like kind of like port in there, and they push saline in it to kind of gradually get them.
So this expander is technically a saline implant.
It's really not, it's like really, really rigid.
Okay.
What it consists of, it's very, very rigid. Like you could feel like the sides of it on the sides of my chest.
Do you know if the outer layer, do they tell you what it's made out of?
They did not. I want to say like a plastic or something.
I'm sure it's the material of just a harder version of an implant, which is probably silicone based, just a harder plastic silicone, which our bodies don't like.
I mean, mine was like covered in infection when they ended up like taking them out. So when I was meeting with the plastic surgeon, she was like, what do you want them to be like? And I was like, I want them to be really big. I never want to wear a bra again.
Right.
And she was like, well, that's not going to look natural. And I was like, I don't care. I mean, I want like stripper boobs.
Don't you hate our brains sometimes?
She was like, I don't know if she maybe never heard that, but I was like, get them big and high.
Were you not comfortable with your boobs beforehand?
No, I had great boobs before, but then I had babies and then they like destroy your boobs.
Yeah.
So then they were like a train wreck. They were like tube socks, like you bend over and they're like to your knees. Like Vienna sausage nipples. So I was like,
you wanted big, but you had not enough skin to like get you there, right? So it's like,
well, she was like trying to push it out as much as I literally like got the infection like a month into it. Mm-hmm. So I never even got to the swap where they take these out and then they put the implants in. I never even got that far.
For the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I was so sick. We'd sold our house because I was like, I want to move. I don't want to, the memories of this house. So we sold our house and my dad had come over to like help my husband with our like patio stuff. And I was holding my son because he was like a baby and I was holding him and he dropped like his like bottle or whatever. And I went to pick it up and I remember like feeling really dizzy and I thought, oh, I'm just tired or, whatever. And then the next day I was getting really, really sick. Like I was like up and down all night long and I was sweating and then freezing and it was like horrible. And I went to the ER and my pulse was like 250, 260. So they wouldn't release me. And I ended up going by ambulance to a bigger hospital. And I stayed there trying to fight this infection.
Right. But they knew where it was coming from, right? Like, could you see it?
Oh yeah, they knew. They knew it was the expanders.
Mm-hmm. Do they see that often? Like, did you hear about that?
They never really tell you those things until after, because I asked and they said like 30% of women have issues where their body like rejects them or for some reason it just doesn't work out.
That's a huge percentage.
Yeah, that's a high percent.
That's the same thing with implants that I remember back in this interview that I'd seen on Oprah, like 30 years ago. I mean, I didn't see it 30 years. It was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were confronting the manufacturers of Dow Corning that made the implants. And he was like, oh, like any other, thing on the market, drug or device, like it has a percentage that it doesn't outweigh the benefits of it. And all the women are thinking, what is a good percentage to have of women that are dying?
Yeah.
Is any percentage a good percentage to have just because we desire to have these things? I think at the end of the day, for me, it's like if the known information would have been out there, we could at least make that informed decision about, do I want to take that 30% chance, and some would, like, who knows, maybe I would have still also, I don't know where my mind at back then, but I always look at it as like, we're not battling necessarily an industry to say, shut it all down. We're trying to say to women that know what can possibly happen and know the actual statistics on what is going on out there because we're being told something completely different.
Yeah. Just to be informed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, because I know I wasn't.
And for you to know, like, you've already been through chemo. You've already, battled that, won that. And then, we're just left like your option is to put these expanders in. And I mean, I'm sure at the time, like, I don't know, were they introducing something like fat transfer? Was that anything?
I didn't have enough.
Yeah.
It was like, I had actually gained like 25 pounds when I was in chemo. And I was like, oh, I can just use this fat, and they were like, yeah, that's only going to give you like one boob and it won't even be big. So I was like, So yeah. I didn't really have enough to make, anything work.
And it's really not an option for many. It gives you like, I think one size maybe bigger, but also like a lot of it goes away. And then there's that whole concept of like, you're taking fat from a body that's already infected with something and like trying to place it somewhere else. And you just never know what can go on with that. And again, I think we're so, at least for me, like after finding out about the implants and then going down the rabbit hole of like learning about the industry and how far reaching the lies go. And then also finding out like, for me, my implants were never supposed to be on the market. They were never supposed to be in the United States. They were taken off in almost every other country and banned. And so you feel this like violation already. And then to, be introduced to potentially something else that we can do. Like, I am in support of doctors that are doing just fat transfers now instead of implants. And even my doctor, that's all he does now. He's an implant-free plastic surgeon. But there's also this sense of like, for me, it's like a lack of trust in the industry and knowing like there's not as much research being done because it's just too lucrative and they don't kind of want to know the percentage of people that have adverse reactions. Again, like numbers aren't a good thing to show people. And that's why, I wanted to do something like this where we are the research that isn't being done, or if it is, they're being quieted. And we can also be able to share our own testimonies just to be able to make a better and more informed decision. Because at the end of the day, like, someone's story might not resonate with a girl, but someone else's, you might be like, oh my gosh, I never would have even thought that was something that could happen. And it takes one spark, one seed to be planted where someone hears it and they're like, wow, like we're so amped and on getting back to where we were, and that's something I've had to come to terms with, and many women go through that journey. And I want to know what yours has been like. Of you already seem like a way more positive person than I was through this experience, like just way more like, we're just doing it, going all the way. I had a lot of stuff come up that I had to deal with from prior to getting the implants, because your story is so interesting because you didn't make a decision to get implants and change yourself in that way. Yours was like, I need to save myself first, and then I'll get something to bring me back to a sense of normalcy, if you will, or to close that chapter in my life.
And I really felt like that was my finish line.
Right.
So
yours is kind of like working backwards, like we thought we were being built up, and then you break it all down to go, well, maybe I don't want to be the way I was before them. I just want to be a healthier version, a more foundational and stable person who's not trying to alter herself in all these different ways. And you were just like, let me save myself. And then I'm sold this dream of like them being great and thinking your life was going to be back to somewhat normal prior to, and like having that realization that you weren't going to get them, like getting the expanders out and going, let me just get back to my health. Like, was that another like definitive, okay, like I'm done trying?
Like, tell you, when you said earlier a lot of that about the finances, that it's a lucrative business. And I want to touch on that for a second, because you are 100% like right. And you've hit the nail on the head, because after I had mine, taken out, my plastic surgeon at the time was like, okay, come back in 6 months and we'll do this again. And I was like, oh no, we are never doing this again. Right. But when you have breast cancer, the law says that if you have, a breast removed or both, or, whatever, legally they have to provide you with surgery. So they have to do that. So there's where the money part comes in. So, but, and this is the fun part or the weird part. So when I had mine taken out, I was like, I'm not going to do this again, but I wanted to have custom breast prosthesis, because they can match up to your skin and they look very real. Mm-hmm. I'll actually show you one. So this is what they look like. And if you can see like the nipple on it, and then they match your skin tone. So you can wear like a pretty lace bra and put these in and it looks just like your real boobs. Yes. And you would not see anything different. So insurance companies, like especially Medicaid, Medicare, will not cover those. And they're $8,000. But most insurance companies...
I'm in the wrong business. I need to make like, fake titties that go on top of your breast.
You make fake ones and that. Because the shelf ones, I don't have the shelf, but this is like what they kind of look like. So you're doing a comparison between something like this. Let me get the other side.
What's the clear one? What is that?
This is kind of like an off-the-shelf prosthetic.
Oh, okay. Like what you would just put in to give you size. Yeah. Okay. But the other one allows you to just like wear whatever and...
Yeah. And you can pick out the nipple color and everything and like what kind of nipple. And there's tons of different skin tones and, that type of thing. But they don't want to cover that. And a lot of insurance...
That's not covered.
No.
But the law states that a plastic surgeon or someone within your...
A plastic surgeon
has to do those surgeries. Yeah. And then your insurance will cover it.
Yep. If you have Medicaid, Medicare, and it doesn't matter what you have, they have to do reconstruction on you if you have a breast that's been removed. Mm-hmm. But they will not cover these type of prosthetics. Is that like just so ridiculous?
Did that send a light bulb off for you that was like, okay, so they're making money off the implant, the surgery, the expander, like that whole process. Most likely revisions, because that cannot be a one-stop shop surgery if it's not a one-stop stop surgery without a double mastectomy, So it's like this revolving door of what do they call it? Like when they know they're going to be getting like repeat customers for the same thing. They know they have you almost for life. And that is what disturbed me about learning about the implant industry and who they were involved in. And I can just even saying that, I'm like, so we're also talking the medical system. We're talking about the insurance systems. We're talking about high up who owns all those going, let's make this mandatory for women. We're going to pose it as like we're helping them get back to a sense of normalcy by making that, a mandatory offer. But really it's just money in their pockets. They could care less if you have issues with it or if you need them redone or, like, did they cover, like, would they cover an explant if you had to get them out? It's like, I wonder, they would probably only cover if you got them redone.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I know that like my sister, her initial set of implants were recalled. So she had to actually go get them removed and get a second pair put in. And so, and that's the thing. A lot of women would love to do, to have the custom breast prosthesis, but they can't afford them, and if you don't have so they say like insurance will cover these, but a lot of people have super high deductibles.
Right.
So they, their insurance doesn't cover them and they don't have $8,000 to pay. So,
and you're talking about something that's it's not put inside your body. Like this is an amazing, fix, if you will, for
right. And they feel very realistic and everything, and they match up to your tone. And literally, and I will send you pictures there. You can find beautiful like lace bras, and it shows you the nipple through. Yeah. Like it's amazing, and it's a middle.
So you go through like a private company. Like, do they send you like options for where to go? And is this a company or is it with them insurance?
If you go to like a breast boutique, or a mastectomy shop, they will have, they're able to, they actually scan your body and they fit the breast will fit onto your body, onto your chest, kind of like a puzzle piece.
I love
so
that.
It fits like perfectly into like the nooks and crannies of your chest after you've had your breast removed.
Right.
So it literally fits like perfectly on you. And it's a perfect choice for somebody that only had one removed because you want to try to match the two, up. And when you have like, like they will give you prosthesis off the shelf and nobody's skin is pink. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it doesn't match.
Right.
And so, it's not okay for women that are darker complected or African-American women that they don't have customs breast prosthesis that can match their skin tone or, they're lopsided. So,
and plus you're offering a woman something, and I hate to say this, but we live in a society where it's like, we're already so financially taxed. And especially when you go through cancer and you have your chemo, you have all just everything, health deteriorating. So then you can't work and all the various things that we're strained with. And then you're offered a free implant. It's like, well, of course people are going to take that. And then you can't make it seem like we made that you made that decision. Like you kind of made it for us.
Yeah. I mean, I know women that have had issues and they've gone they're attempting their third time with breast because they did, it's
they can't let that idea go. And then once you're kind of what they consider deformed from the first or second option, it's like, you need to keep trying to get back to something. And they're not alone in that. That's like a vast majority of women who just get implants, is that they never are okay the first time. I mean, I probably should have gotten a revision because of a hard capsular contracture that locked my right breast up to be like just a tennis ball and the other one was still down. But I was at the point where I'm like, I don't want to deal with going under the knife again. This was not presented to me. And I already didn't like them from the start. And so I never went under again, which now I'm so grateful because I hear of women getting sicker the second and third time they revise it because you're opening up that old wound and you're releasing all the toxins from the implant into the body again and again and again. And especially the women that didn't get their capsule taken out, that was left in, then they get even sicker. So I just look at it as like God was protecting me from that. But many women have had to walk that path out, and I can't imagine just the overall trauma your body's going through. And, you were able to, did they just use the incision and closed it right back up again? So that's like, they were going to go in through that, close it. Okay.
Yeah.
And have you been healthy since taking the expanders out?
Yeah, I've been great. Yeah.
It's amazing. And the cancer has not come back at all. No. And then health wise, all the symptoms that would have come from the infection, nothing.
The infection would have killed me, literally.
Yeah.
I mean,
because it was like sepsis almost, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely going to kill me before breast cancer was. I mean, I was so incredibly sick. Yeah. And I mean, it was because of the infection. And when they took the expanders out, my entire chest wall was just covered in infection. So there was no way, because I kept saying, maybe if I keep because I was on, an IV antibiotic, and I kept thinking maybe if I just keep it like this, it'll be fine. It'll clear up. And she said, infection sticks to the plastic and it doesn't clear up. It just stays. And so, they were like, we could continue on, but during the explant, when they do the swap and take the expander out and put the implant in, your whole chest could be covered in infection and we won't be able to do it. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I had the expanders removed and my chest was still covered in.
What was that detox infection like, or what was that healing like? Did they keep you at the hospital and to get the infection gone?
I was there for 7 days. Wow. And I got out on my son's 6th birthday, my oldest son. And I went back 3 days later and I had both of the expanders removed. And I felt better, honestly. It was immediately, it was so fast.
I think that's part of what us women go through, putting anything foreign on top of our chest wall. It's we have such a litany of symptoms, but somehow I can't explain it. Like I woke up from surgery and I was bound like so tight, like a mummy. Like I couldn't breathe for sure. I couldn't move. But I turned to my doctor and I was just like, you saved my life. Like I'm gonna be better. I can breathe in a way that I didn't need my chest to be able to breathe. I just like air was passing through in a way that hadn't before. And I think something about, I mean, we could go in the metaphysicals of it all, but like putting these things over your heart chakra and over major organs and that infection that causes your blood to start to change. And for me, I was having like crazy heart palpitations all the time. And I had pneumonia really, really bad. So I understand the whole like infection thing. My fever, then like freezing, and then all the different temperatures and hand numbness and all these things, because I didn't really have a reaction to the silicone per se. Like I had the textured implants that it was sloughing off into my system, just like microparticles of it. So it wasn't the deep silicone that was kind of infecting my body, but they do travel and it affects your whole nervous system and endocrine and hormone and all your organs. But mine was just my body fighting off like incessantly trying to get them out of my system. So I just was experiencing like infection like symptoms where my test results came back normal, but I felt like my body was just dying from the inside out. And so I knew they had, once was divinely sent to like the answer, I knew they had to come out. But I look back,
but it's a hard choice.
So hard.
You know, I mean,
that's why I'm calling this bigger than boobs, because it's not just about these things. Like it's about everything that led up to you feeling like you needed them, feeling like our self-worth or who we are as a woman is tied up into these things. And what women like yourself have just blown me away with is the fact that I see you as like just glowing versions of femininity and womanhood, like regardless of your shape, regardless of like how you carry yourself. It's this like just divine nature that you can see when someone's gone through what we've gone through, just in the terms of making the decision to not have something put on your body, not carrying the weight of these things because of what society has told us would make us more feminine. And for me, it was like that would somehow erase all of my insecurities growing up about being boyish or, not womanly enough. And I had to get rid of all those notions, but it took a while to shed them. I think I'm still working through that 2 years later, but I'm finding that having these conversations with women like yourself are the healing that I never realized I needed, was sharing other people's testimonies. And you bring such a perspective that is needed in this community, because we're so hell-bent on what our tits are going to look like after that somehow we forget that we're still a woman before, after it. These things don't define us. And the common question is always like, well, I'm afraid what I'm going to look like, or what. And that whole story about having kids, and I can't attest to it, but it's like the flapjack aspect, the saggy skin. And yeah, I mean, we all have like weird boob stories about what they look like, but in our, uniqueness of them, like that's where our beauty lies. But it's going to take us using our voices and sharing that story. And that's why I think like you being so open about it in a very vulnerable space of, you weren't even in your healing when you shared it, in what you thought was going to be your healing, because you thought getting the implants was going to be your final, like, look at, this is my process, and similarly to me, I was like, I'm going to film this whole thing. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, what it's going to look like. I took them into like the operating room, like opened the boob up, sent the camera in. Like I couldn't even watch it after. I was like, holy crap, we did this. But I think that there's just this innate pull in me to want to be like transparent with this process, because we're just in a world where everything is so hidden. So I commend you for like wanting to do that in a way that is so bold and courageous, and you're going to give so many women and girls hope that if God forbid something like, cancer does strike them, that there are options beyond
there are
the implants.
I'll tell you two stories, but one is I'm actually working with a movement, and it's called Let Her Decide. And it's to change legislation to include the custom breast in being insured. So every woman has the option to have these and not have to make that choice of, do I go under the knife because I just want to look like, symmetric or, whatever. So the custom breast prosthesis is kind of like the middle road, I guess, of shelf and then, implants. So we're hoping to get that kind of moving along.
Who do you have to go to for that? Like, does it go all the way up to like federal, the big dogs?
Yeah. So,
isn't it crazy that it's our health and our, decision, and yet it's not being made by us? You realize like who's actually in control of
so crazy because like on the federal level, they will literally cover every single other body part. They'll cover with a custom prosthesis except your boobs. Every single, your ear, anything, your eye, whatever, they'll cover it all other than your boobs. Isn't that horrible?
That's a whole conversation right there. Wow.
Yeah.
They'll give you an ear and they won't give you a boob. And it's not saying that this is functional. It's simply for the aesthetic of it. All of the above, right? These are prosthetics. Right. They're not doing something. It's like giving you an amputee a new leg. I mean, that's functional.
Right.
They're all across the board, like to make
like like your eye is not going to be, you're not going to see out of it. Right. You know what I mean? But they'll give you a custom eye, but they will cover literally everything but boobs. It's crazy.
That's something I'd like to dig into. Exactly. I'm like, another rabbit hole to go down.
Definitely.
Tell me more, because I will get involved in this however I can too, because I'm like all in this fight. Even though I didn't go through your journey, but I would love to still get a perspective and be able to share what you guys are doing, because it's people don't realize the fight.
We're trying to take it state by state before we can take it to the federal level, because these shouldn't be just an option if you have good insurance. You know what I mean? Like they're not.
What do we pay for insurance for?
Exactly. Well, if you're Medicaid or Medicare, they won't cover anything. But if you have a high deductible, if you're.
And who do you think are the women most prone to getting cancers? People that are not in a subsect of our community, that their access to better healthcare and better food and better, it's just, they know how it's going to all play in.
Yeah. And it's crazy. So, I mean, it's very frustrating, especially when you see, young women that their bodies can't accept implants and they don't have really a whole lot of options. So that's kind of a frustrating part.
And so you're working with other women that have also been through similar like you, or they just did the double mastectomy and just stopped there? Like, did they all have adverse reactions to the?
So the Let Her Decide movement is actually, the woman that's running it has never had breast cancer or implants or anything like that, but she's helping kind of like try to, get the legislation all together so we can present it and get it covered. Because I guess you have to do it state by state until it can go federal. So
it's a lot of work. That's why I think, like, when I talked to Laura, the woman who's been fighting with the FDA for 30 years and just got back into it in 2019, she's like, it is a battle like nobody's business to even get in front of a judge in the FDA and be able to, get your case heard, and you get like 2 minutes and then it's on to it's just,
But it always kind of makes me laugh, because I think if I was a guy, come on, if your penis doesn't work, they're like, Viagra, you know what I mean? And
they have everything for them is covered.
But
I'm sure they're probably figuring out a way to like enlarge their penises somehow, and that's going to be for sure covered. And
everything, it's so frustrating.
Well, I actually heard that some guys were having symptoms of BII or breast implant illness. I guess you wouldn't call it that then, but
Yeah.
because they're getting like testicular cancer and they're putting testicle implant to like
I never
give
even thought
them
about
a
that.
better side. Although who's seeing that? Although I'm not going to
Right.
judge. Maybe it makes them feel
Right.
better. But similarly, you can't put a silicone thing in your, especially in an area where
I
it's so much
never even
heat
thought
and
about
so
that.
much like circulation. It's like, of course, your symptoms are going to exacerbate even faster. There's a lot of friction there. Like, unlike these, you know, it's not like in a very warm area. I don't want to laugh because it's a serious thing.
That's crazy.
But
I never really.
You'll see when they start speaking up about it, I'm sure they'll be heard.
Oh yeah. And they'll probably not even have to really
guys
speak up
for
about
testicular implant illness. We hear you guys.
We hear you loud and clear.
Right? We're on it. So it's amazing that you're fighting for that, and we'll keep everyone abreast on that.
And I will give you my email. It's pinkvictory07@gmail. If anybody has questions or wants to join in, they can email me and I'll, kind of direct them on where to go. But I think when you were talking earlier about just like, society and kind of like what we are kind of as women expected to do.
Yeah.
And when I was going through chemo and I was bald and boobless and a hot mess, but my mom was getting an award and I put on a wig and I put on my prosthetics and, I went and everybody was like, oh, you look great. Well, whatever. And I got home and I took everything off and I was like, fuck this.
You didn't pull a Samantha moment and just like rip your wig off.
I wanted to.
I did. You're like,
I did at the stop sign and the guy next to me was like,
so great.
Because it's freaking hot.
You're like,
but I was
with
like,
the wig.
Damn it. I was like, told my husband, I was like, it's fucking irritating. I was like, because, this is the reality, like I am, putting all this shit on just because this is kind of, I guess, what's expected. Nobody wants to see what cancer really looks like.
Right.
It scares everyone, they don't want to see that. But I took everything off and I had my husband take a picture. And I actually have it posted on my Instagram because I want everyone to understand that is what breast cancer is. It's not, the pretty pink ribbons or, your awesome wigs. And I had a really nice wig. So, it's like when you strip it all down, that's the reality. And a lot of times it's the reality nobody wants to see.
I think we've really glamorized cancer, unfortunately. And I know that there's good intentions behind it to make everyone feel like a part of something and that they can get through it. But like we were talking about earlier, for me, the most authentic way to connect with others is to be like, I'm going through it also, and it looks like this. And some days are shitty and some days are ugly, but it doesn't mean that you won't get through it either. Like I was so scared to share my story of after getting them out that it would somehow deter girls from getting them out because they didn't see me at my quote unquote best or feeling great about myself. But I was like, that's my story. Like, and why is that a bad thing to be going through this struggle? And why would that deter someone? It's still you having your health and it's still you living. Like whereas before I was existing, especially when I was sick. And that blew the doors wide open for me because I was like, no, I'm no longer going to hide the things that I'm going through in this process of you're not just healing from an implant illness, you're healing from your entire life of society's pressures of telling you how you should look and be and perform and act and just exist as a woman. And we're breaking through all that by sharing our stories. And that in its entirety is actually empowering. It's not you showing up, like in a wig and your makeup, and that makes you feel good in the moment. But it's when you get home,
But does it really make you feel good?
Right.
No, it didn't make me feel good because
it makes it so people don't question things, and maybe you're like, oh, maybe they're gonna see me and go, I could do it too. But that's not really what people see, because then when they're going through it, they're gonna be like, I never saw her struggle with it. I never saw maybe it's not supposed to be like this.
It's so funny that you say that, because when I first posted my picture of my chest, like totally flat,
with no shirt, right?
Yeah, with no shirt.
So
I
ballsy.
just was like, hey, and I posted it, and I had so many women contact me and say, I've been following you since you had gone through breast cancer. And I was always jealous because I always thought you had such amazing implants. Because I always, would show pictures and they were like shocked because they couldn't believe that that's what my chest actually looked like. And they were like, mine looks like that too. And they were, like, and it's
right
okay,
there, you realize that was my breakthrough moment too, was like posting about the surgery and the scars and realizing, like, when you connect with women that see you in the same light that they see themselves, like, that's where healing can begin. It's not when you show up as this altered version of yourself and people go, oh, you look great, because inside you're like, that's not really what I look like. And so you feel inauthentic in who you're presenting. It's when you show up as this raw self and you can connect with a woman who feels like they see themselves in you. And if it's just one person that says they see you like that, you're like, all this time, like, this is just what it was about, And I knew that my journey in life, I needed to get to this point where I trusted the world, that I could be myself in it, that I could find true connection and friendship in this. And I never thought it would come through boobs. Like, I wanted to connect with people deeply my whole life, and I just always felt like I couldn't, especially women. And I think God is hilarious that he's like, okay, you're going to have women friends, but it's going to be through you going through this crazy ass experience where you break yourself all the way down. And the way you're built back up literally is through these other women saying, I see you, in a way that I've never experienced that, And Zoom FaceTime call. No, thank you. But yeah, I think that that's something that I've been gifted with, and I can pretty much attest to for other women, when you do share your story. And I never push anyone to, but I think when we see women like yourself or myself or the other women as part of this series, they can go, there's healing in sharing my story and not staying silent about it. And it doesn't matter how many followers you have or friends you have, like, it's that not stifling it and in not living in your truth, you're suffocating all that stuff,
There's healing in vulnerability, I think, too,
100%.
like just showing the world what you have and saying, accept me or don't, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Is an awesome feeling.
That part.
And I mean, it's scary when you first do it, because you're not really sure how people will respond. But at the same time, it was liberating just to be me and not have the pressure of, what everyone expected me to be, or,
I mean, you wiped the slate clean and you're like, this is what we got. And
this is what we're working with.
This is what we're working with. And this is how I'm going to present myself. And that's the biggest F you to the system I ever seen. And it it makes me feel so honored to just be like a part of your journey, a part of this walk, to be a part of all these women that are sharing our testimonies, to whoever is going to hear it. Like, I hope that it reaches that girl that thinks, I'm not going to be enough without these, and to just be able to tell them, like, look at these women thriving from this, I would say, I'm going to ask, like, one thing I always ask these ladies is, if there was this one thing you can say to the girl, and yours is going to be specific to going through a mastectomy and not knowing the decision to make, and that's placed in front of you, what would you tell them?
I would tell another woman, or myself, actually, if I could go back and tell myself this, to skip the that's my dog to skip the attempt.
You tell them. So what would you tell them? He's like, let me
he's like, let me tell them something. I would say skip the reconstruction phase altogether. And I know that that's not for everyone. I mean, and I I honestly try not to say that a lot because my choice may not be the right choice for other people.
Girl, I've been in your same shoes. I just talked about it last episode. I said I used to be the girl who kind of treaded lightly on the subject of get them if you want. It's your decision. And because truthfully, they're going to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah. At the end of the day, people are going to do what they want to do. But
I had to stand on my truth and the truth that I knew. And it wouldn't behoove anybody to lie about how I felt about it, you know?
And take kind of us as warning signs. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I don't know a ton of people that it has worked perfectly for, you know, as far as the implants are concerned. So I would say forget that whole process and do customs or go flat or, whatever. You can rock the shit out of a flat chest too, but be you and own it,
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So tell them again the email to contact you and then your social media so that they can see your amazingness.
Okay. So my email is pinkvictory07@gmail. And my Instagram is Sparrow, and it's SPERO_hope_LLC_.
And that's because
tons of pictures.
Yeah. And that's because we didn't even get into that. I will share that with them that you created a company that's all natural, right? To be able to give options for women and not putting nasty shit on our skin.
And it's all in glass. So I have, after the breast cancer. Yes, it is. I threw all my plastic stuff away.
We could do a whole other episode on that too. And we'll get there. But thank you so much for taking the time to share this story with me and with everyone listening. You guys, I'll put all her links below in the video, and just thank you all for listening and opening your eyes and your hearts to something that might not have been your story, but it's probably more women than you think that are around you going through this. So thank you so much, Jamie. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure you hit the like button. And if you want to catch more episodes, make sure you subscribe. And please comment any questions you have down below. We'll see you on the next one.